So he goes, I don't know if you believe in God or not, but if you do, you need to ask him why you're not dead. And I prayed a lot. Mm-hmm. And I thought, Lord, like there's no good reason that I am not dead. And then I said, if it wouldn't have been for all of those Mexicans who assisted me, the Mexican people, I would be dead.
Welcome to Open Seat, the podcast where we create a space for authentic conversations about faith, unfiltered and unapologetic. Here, we believe that every story matters. Whether you're questioning, seeking, or steadfast in your beliefs, you'll find something relatable in these heartfelt discussions. So grab your seat, get comfortable, and let's dive into today's story here at Open Seat. Well, today on the podcast, in the Open Seat, we have the Very Reverend Michael E. Newman, OSFS.
Yes, thank you, Katie. It's so wonderful to be here. I've heard so many of these. I've loved listening to them, and now I'm in the Open Seat myself. What a gift. What a blessing.
Yes, for us as well. I mean, your schedule's pretty hard to track down, so anyone who thought we should have done this first off.
Yeah, that was not going to happen.
Yeah, no.
That was not.
No.
And I think you just enjoy getting to interrogate me, and then we'll put this online.
I mean, there are some benefits to this job.
Amen.
There are. So, what do you have to share with us today, Father?
Oh, that's a really wide open question. I just got back from Toledo. I went to Toledo Thursday after the Mass and spent Thursday and Friday and then this morning with my parents. Uh-huh. And that was just so wonderful and restful. And then really today we just got done with the 4 o'clock Mass. I don't even know my Mass times. And here we are. The readings are just beautiful about God coming to be with his people, to save his people, and our own desire to respond or pay attention to where God is. That always hits me. What I didn't talk about today, but I usually do, is that the founder of the Oblates, Blessed Brisson, he was very big on the three comings of Christ. And he's not unique in this. I used to think, this was a brand new insight. Well, it's not. But like many good things in the church, we just steal it and repackage it for life. But Father Brisson taught that there were three comings. He said the first coming is when Christ came as a child to save us, in the manger that we celebrate in Christmas. He said the second coming is the coming of Christ in glory to judge us, but also to fulfill and complete all creation. And then he says the third coming of Christ is today and every day, because he says Christ is always coming if you can just pay attention to that. And as I get older, and I'm not that old, right, at 44, but that's what strikes me the most, that Christ is coming each and every day if I can just pay attention to that and not get so distracted in so many other things in my life, right? Which, by the way, is constant.
Really? I thought in between praying the office every, 3 hours and...
Well... So for the priest, right, you've got Office of Readings, which is scripture readings, right? That's in the morning. I do that at 5:30. Then there's morning prayer, which Father Tom and I do together around 7:30.
That's your community.
That's our community morning prayer at 7:30. Yeah. Then there's daytime prayer, which can happen anywhere before 4 o'clock, and I'm usually pretty good with that. Sometimes life here happens, and then I say, Lord, that's yours. Then there's evening prayer, which is anytime in my life, anytime before 9 o'clock. Again, depending on what happens in the evening. And then there's night prayer. And I always do night prayer because it's just a beautiful way to say, okay, God, this mess of a day has happened. And where did I see you? I do that prayer a lot. Where did I find you today? Where did I miss you because I was so busy in my own stuff, my own list? And then be with me as I lay down tonight, which is this very beautiful image the church gives us. Be with us.
So... how did you decide to join the Oblates?
Oh, gosh. So when I was a kid, my family, we grew up in Toledo, and we went to Christ the King Parish in Toledo, and we were altar servers. I love being an altar server. It was great. So when I see, the little altar servers who love it, I'm like, oh, God, this is just so great. I mean, and I get so excited with the servers. It just brings back memories, right?
Okay. Glory days.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a memory. So I was taught by this nun, this Notre Dame Sister Mary Teresita Richards, who I got to know once I was back in Toledo as a priest. And she taught us, I went to Catholic school, so we were taught at lunch. We had to skip recess. So there were like 30 of us that she would teach at once. And it was very organized and structured, which is not how we do it. But
No, it's not. No. But you
different.
would get paid for altar serving too, right?
No, we did not.
Oh, you did not?
No, we did
Okay.
not. No. So you did it. And I would serve always 8 o'clock mass every Sunday, right? 8 or 8:30. Didn't matter. That was the mass we were going to. And so there was an oblate there, Father Ranoszewski, who almost always at that point in our life had that mass. So, when you serve for somebody over and over, you develop a relationship with them. You get to know them. The younger servers know, like, for example, if they're washing my hands, they love to use a lot of water, and then I will flick that water back at them. And then they get smarter, and they realize I don't want to use that much water, except for a couple. A couple, I think, really, they're just like,
that.
We are just doing this. But we served with him over and over and over. So we went to Catholic school, and it came time for high school. We actually moved to a different school district because my parents, both who worked in grocery, said, we just can't afford anything. If you want this, you guys have to get a scholarship or something. So the grade school I was at had a scholarship form for this high school. And so I filled it out and thought maybe we'll get lucky, right? So I filled out this thing, and I sent it in. Well, wouldn't you know, it got a scholarship. So then my dad said, well, you got a scholarship. I guess you're going to Catholic high school, even though we moved across the city so we could send you to public school. But that's
beside the point.
That's how God works, right?
Yes.
And so then we went to Catholic school, or high school. And that's when I met even more Oblates.
So you went to St. Francis,
I went to St. Francis in Toledo, 95 to 99.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was probably, 10 or 11 guys there, I think, Oblates.
Oh,
I think. I might be wrong on that. But
how many Oblates are there now?
there are, I think it's 5 or 6.
Well, it's still a good number.
It's a wonderful number for the school. And then I taught there several times, which was just one, that was a wonderful experience for me. But then when it was getting time for college, right? And so I'm looking around at all these different schools. I want to study English. I came up here and looked at Siena Heights. My mom's an alumnus, right? So, so I was looking at schools, and the guidance counselor goes, well, the Oblates have a university in Pennsylvania. You could check that out. And I'm like, I don't think I want to go that far. That's really far. I was kind of adventurous. I'm not adventurous at all now, but I was kind of before. And I'm like, that's really far away. So I took this book he gave me, just like put it in my closet. But then I went out and toured the school, and then came back, and I was really looking at probably going to University of Toledo because it was cheap, and I had to pay for college by myself. The tuition was good. The school was good. It would have been fine. And then I get this letter in the mail from DeSales University saying that they were going to give me a full ride, except for room and board. So that changed everything. Now I'm like, now it's about paying the same. And then I thought, well, I could stay in Toledo, or I could go out to Pennsylvania, which is 8 hours away. And I thought, let's go to Pennsylvania.
Because I'm sure your dad loved driving across the city every day to drive you to school. So now I'm going to drive you to Pennsylvania.
That's right. We did.
Yeah. I can imagine.
And at that point, DeSales University was surrounded by cornfields. So you were like in this valley, and there's mountains around you, which were around this time of year absolutely beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
But if you didn't have a car, which I didn't for several years, you're just stuck there, right? You got nothing. And I went there, and I really only knew one guy from St. Francis, kind of, who's also an oblate now. But really no one. So I really started on campus fresh. And even while I was there, I got to meet more Oblates. I really liked what the Oblates did. But I was also at that point looking at different religious orders too. I was really seriously considering the possibility of a religious vocation, right? And I never thought about diocesan priesthood. I have nothing against the diocesan priesthood. I work with a lot of really good guys here in the diocese. But that never caught me. I think it was the reality that I could teach, so I wanted to be a teacher, and also be a priest at the same time was very attractive to me. So I was looking at different communities, but even while I did that, I just kept being pulled back to the Oblates over and over and over. And so what really nailed it was 2 things. One, my junior year, I took a course in Salesian spirituality from an Oblate priest at DeSales, Father Sandy Pachetto. And it just really spoke to me. That spirituality about being in the presence of God, paying attention to what God is doing in your life.
Present moment
stuff, which I always struggle with. That any action can be a holy action. I've always found that so attractive, that it's just normal, everyday things that
offer
make
much
one
charity in different situations.
Yeah. I mean, it just made so much sense to me. And then at that same time in the summers, I was working out at Camp de Sales where Father Ken McKenna was. And he was a very spiritual man. And we would always see him pray. And I can remember seeing him at the novitiate, which is a formation stage for guys. I could remember seeing him in the chapel there. And we would all come in the morning for Mass, of course. But he would be there early and he would be praying. And just the intensity of that prayer, it just always struck with me. Like, here is a man who has devoted his life to God, and it just shows. That was just so attractive to me, and I wanted that. So I went for it.
So what happened after college? Because you were still discerning.
Well, so my discernment was special.
Well, we would expect nothing less.
So when I was in college, I started college as an English major. I loved to read. I loved to write and all these kind of things. But my problem in college was I think I was just overtired or bored. I don't know. But like I slept in so many classes. And it wasn't on purpose. It was just I'd get to class.
I feel like we need to like hit pause on this and then just play it later at a staff meeting when the same thing happens to me. Because I'm either overstimulated or bored, and I'll let you know later which one that is.
I mean, I would go to these classes. I would fall asleep. I can write really well, which is important in English. So I was always doing great, but I wasn't learning anything. And I just thought, I can't sit here for 4 years. And when I felt bad for the teacher, I felt bad for me. It looks terrible to go in class and like fall asleep. And in college, they're not going to be like, wake up, right? They're like, whatever.
Yeah.
But the class I didn't fall asleep in was Spanish. And I loved the different language and the culture and all that kind of stuff. But I was always really nervous about it because, there are some degrees in college, like you can get a degree and not kind of know what you're doing and be okay. But if you're going to get a Spanish degree or a language degree, you better know what you're doing when you graduate. You're not going to get a job. So as I'm going through college, this idea, wouldn't it be fun to be a Spanish teacher, keeps popping up in my head. And I'd had great Spanish teachers at St. Francis. I had 2 very excellent teachers. And then one day I just was in my room and I thought, you know what? Let's just do it. The worst that can happen is you won't know everything. But I'm not going to let that happen.
I was going to say, for you, that is the worst that could happen. For the rest of us, that's just an everyday occurrence.
Right. I'm like, wait, what? So I decided, let's just try this. So I changed majors into Spanish. So now I'm in this new major and I was doing great. So I lived a summer in Mexico City with the Missionaries of the Precious Blood, Missionaries of Sacred Heart. And we did different things for helping people, really. We learned a little bit of language. We helped people. I got to go to the Basilica of Guadalupe. It was really nice. It was 2 weeks one summer. And then my junior year, I had to study abroad. And a bunch of other people were going to this place in Seville, Spain, because they were going to be together abroad. And in hindsight, I probably should have done that. But I was like, well, I'm not going to learn anything if I'm with these people because we're going to speak English all the time. So I said, I'm going to go same city. I'll go to Seville, but I'm going to go to the University of Seville. Plus, that looks a lot better on a transcript than
only you would
center.
think this. Most people are like, I'm going to a foreign country. I'm going to have a great time. Here's you. Oh, what's going to look best on my transcript in 10 years?
Well, yeah, I got to get a job when I'm done.
Yes, all
Doesn't
college.
everybody think like this? Okay.
No.
So we're going to do this, and I'm accepted in the University of Seville, and then 9/11 happens, and so this is just terrible. So this happens, and my parents call me, and my dad, he goes, so your mom doesn't want you to go to Seville. My dad didn't say he didn't.
Yes, your
mom doesn't. And then he goes, we'd like you to reconsider. Now, I'm paying for college, right? So I said, well, my first thought was, well, I'm going to go wherever I want because I'm putting the bill. But then I thought, no, there might be some wisdom in this. And then I didn't know what to do. And then one of my friends at school said, why don't you do this Rose Novena to St. Therese of Lisieux? Which is, if you don't know, it's 9 days of prayers. And at the end of this novena, you're supposed to get a rose basically to tell you what to do, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I was like, well, okay. So St. Therese is a wonderful woman, not my favorite saint, but a lot of people do like her. And so I said, well, I will do this novena. And so I simply said, I put down conditions to God, of course. Like, who doesn't? I said, okay, God, if I'm going to do this, I need an absolutely clear sign that is so blatant. Like, I would have to be an idiot not to know what this is, and everybody else would too. And number 2, I didn't tell anybody I was doing it because I didn't want someone to be like helping. So I did this prayer for 9 days, and the end of the 9th day, And the prayer was, I'm not supposed to go to Spain, God. I need the sign. So the 9th day, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm like, there's been no sign. I'm looking for there's no roses. There's no nothing. I went to church that day just, to see. No sign, no sign, no sign. Okay. We're in the cafeteria at dinner. And we finished dinner. And in college, a big thing for us in DeSales, remember Cornfield?
Yes.
Is checking your mailbox. Very important. You might get mail.
You might get cookies from mom or something.
You might get anything, right? This is the late 90s. Email was I had a Hotmail account still.
Oh,
Email's starting. So we go to check our mail, and I had already checked multiple times. I'm like, there's not going to be anything in this box, but I'll check it because you're all checking it. So I'm reaching my hand in, and I pull out, and there's this letter in there. And I'm like, oh, this wasn't here before. So I open up this letter. And it's from my friend Shaban. And the letter's very short. It just said, hi, Mike. I was in Center City, Allentown, which was at that point, was all Puerto Rican. Center City, Allentown. And I saw this, and I thought of you, so I bought it for you. Mm-hmm. And taped to the bottom of it is a medal of Our Lady Guadalupe.
Oh.
And I just said a word I'm not going to say on a podcast, right?
Shoot.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Stronger than that.
Yeah,
but I was like, all right. Message received.
Oh, you're kind, because I'd be like, well, there's no flower attached to this.
Well,
I know. Our Lady has roses,
the bottom of the medal, which I still have over in the rectory, has roses on it. So, okay, message received. So I understand. My mom was very happy. I think my dad was happy too. So I then unenrolled from the University of Seville. And I re-enrolled in the University of Guadalajara in Mexico.
Oh, they were okay with you going to Mexico.
That's correct. There wasn't an ocean separating us.
I see. Okay.
So that was okay. The ocean was the issue.
Oh, okay.
I think it might have been safer being in Spain. But, I mean, it's a different time.
Yeah.
2001, right? But Guadalajara was the most European city in Mexico. Still is considered one of the most. And I really wanted to go there. Plus, I've been in Mexico City. It's the second biggest city, Guadalajara. And again, University of Guadalajara looks great on transcripts.
Now we know the real
we are
answer.
going. This is where I'm going. And I'll never forget the day I left. It was January 11th, 2002. So I was 21. Mm-hmm. And I was getting ready to leave. And I realized that morning, taking a shower, that I had a hernia.
Oh.
Now, I had hernias before. In fact, when I was a freshman at DeSales in 99, I took a weightlifting class in order to try and impress the ladies, So everybody laughs when I understand why everybody laughs at
Well,
this.
because you're a 4th grade T-ball star.
Thank you. That's why I took the weightlifting.
I mean, your brother is a collegiate athlete in
Cycling.
Cycling. You will not find him because he did not qualify in anything. But, collegiate athlete too. I did weightlifting.
I did. Well, I did it too much because I ended up herniating myself. And so I was like, I don't know what this is. And they're like, well, this is a hernia and the intestine's going everywhere. And I'll spare everybody listening the details, but it went everywhere. So during the spring break that year, I went to Toledo and had hernia repair. And they put all this wire, this mesh, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I know what a hernia is like. Mm-hmm. I get to right before I'm going to Guadalajara, I'm like, oh, I have another hernia. Okay, it's where the mesh is not. Okay. And in my mind, I'm like, if I tell them I have a hernia, my mom, she's not going to let me go ocean or not. Right? It's not going to happen. So what do? You say nothing.
Yeah.
This is, 21-year-old Michael's thoughts. So
I still think it's 44-year-old Michael's thoughts, but anyway, go ahead.
So I remember getting on the plane with 2 really heavy bags of luggage and a backpack and a hernia and landing in Mexico for the university, right? So I'm in Guadalajara, and it was wonderful. I would not trade my time down there for anything. The culture was great. The people were wonderful. I learned so much Spanish I would never teach you anywhere else, just by life. I had so many great life experiences down there. But then a couple weeks in, I noticed I was just getting really, really tired. And I have some autoimmune problems, so I thought, I'll bet you this is just like I'm getting dehydrated or something's just not right. So I buy more Gatorade at the store, and I make sure I'm having enough chips for salt when still eating, and just trying to modulate my diet to get better. And I can remember 2 days. One day I remember I was leaving the university, and you had to walk at that point, right? I mean, you could take a taxi. It was too expensive. We were on limited budget. And I had to walk home, which was like a 20-minute walk. And it was pouring down rain, and I was like slow stepping. I think it took me over an hour, and by the time I got home, I was just trashed. It was so wet. Then another time we went to Lake Chapala, a bunch of friends and me, And it's just the largest freshwater lake in Mexico, but highly polluted. So you go on the boat, and it's got barriers on the sides, so the water doesn't even touch you. That's how bad it is, but everybody goes. And so we were there, and I was really sick. And my one friend, who was from Guadalajara, he just said, you look awful. You look so sick. You need to see a doctor. And I'm like, well, we got exams coming up this week, so maybe I'll do the exams and then I'll go see a doctor. He's like, you promise that? I promise. Mm-hmm. So I went to university. Friday were our exams, and they were oral exams. You didn't have writing. You just spoke to the professors in Spanish, and they were able to look at your. So I stood for both of the oral exams. I had 2 of them, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. Then I got on the bus to go to this hospital, which was a private hospital, because I contacted my university liaison for hospitals, and they said, since you're not Mexican, you need to go to this one as an American. Okay, sure. Fine. Mm-hmm. So I go to this hospital, Mexicano Americano, and I go into the hospital, and there's this woman sitting at the admissions desk, and I'm like, hi, I'm a student at the university. I'm not feeling very well. I've got a hernia. I want to really just try and fight it out until spring break, and then I can fly home, get it fixed, and come back. And so she goes, well, I'm a doctor, so let's look at this. So they look at my side over on my left side. And she says, do you see that bulge coming out of your side? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's been there a while. She goes, do you see how it's red? I'm like, yeah, it's been there a while. She goes, do you see how it's hot? I'm like, again, situation normal. Like, this has been there a while. She goes, you got to have surgery now. And I was like, well, how about a second opinion on that? How about another opinion before this happens? She goes, fine. So she calls a doctor. I then call my university liaison. I said, this is what's going on. She goes, well, I'm going to call she had a friend who was a military doctor. Mm-hmm. She goes, I'm going to call the military doctor. The hospital got this other doctor. The military doctor and the other doctor come in, and they look, and they're like, we got to do surgery right now. So I'm like, okay. And really, I mean, I think it was just not understanding how serious this was, and the fact I'd already had hernia surgery. I'm like, okay, fine, like whatever. Be 45-minute surgery, we're fine. So we go into surgery, and I can remember being wheeled down in the gurney into the room, and I'm like, oh, this is the first cool room I've had, like, my entire time I've been down here. Like, it's not 100 degrees. This is great. And then I was out. And then the next memory I have is waking up, and it's 7 a.m. And I woke up because the TV in the room came on, and it was this show called Chicago Hope, which was a big hospital show in the early 2000s. And they always started the same. It was somebody's laying on the hospital gurney, and, like, their insides are totally open, and they're, like, digging in and all that stuff. So I wake up in the hospital, and I'm like, oh, wow, that looks terrible, that poor person. But then I realized I really can't move, like, at all. Oh. Like, I can't move. But I'm awake. So I'm like, okay. So I'm laying in this bed, and people come in, and they give me, like, something to drink for breakfast, and then the doctor comes in, and the doctor says, he goes, well, here's what happened. He said, when you came down here 6 weeks ago, you had a hernia, right? He said, but over time, because you didn't take care of it, the hernia actually wrapped around your large intestine, and it split it, like it ripped it open. So he said, so for weeks, your intestine's been exposed, and stuff that should be going out of your body has been going into your bloodstream. He goes, so you were septic. And he said, if you had waited 3 or 4 more days or had not come in within 3 or 4 days, you would have just fallen over dead. So he goes, so your pain threshold is scary, good / dangerous. Don't ever do that again. But he said, we had to cut out part of your intestine. He said, your blood was so bad that we had to do a full blood transfusion. We had to get AB negative blood from the university, which I didn't know my blood type till then. He's like, so we had to flush all that blood out and put all this new blood in. He said, and, we basically cut you up in several places because it was a huge 10-hour operation. So he goes, I don't know if you believe in God or not, but if you do, you need to ask him why you're not dead. And then he left. And I'm
drop
in the hospital. I don't know anybody in this hospital. I'm just sitting there in the hospital. Eventually, my parents come down.
Yeah, I can't imagine that was a nice phone call.
It was not. They were terrified. They got tickets to Mexico. They know no Spanish. My dad's innate friendliness somehow got them from Toledo to Mexico City to Guadalajara. In fact, they were in the hospital with me. and I was really sick, and they were staying with my host family, which was very kind. I was in the hospital about 2 weeks until they finally discharged, and I did not want to go home. I was like, I can make this work. Like, it's just studying and exams. I can do that from a bed.
Yeah, I can imagine your mom was thrilled when she found out that you had her hernia for 6 weeks and didn't say anything.
Yeah, probably not. Well, back then it was phone cards on the phone, too. We didn't have phones like today. So, you buy a $5 phone card, and it would eat up like $2.50 just to make the call from the payphone on the street.
Yeah, when you told her that, did it go over well? Because I can't imagine it.
I didn't actually tell her. Somebody else called her. I was in no condition to pick up a phone.
It's okay, Mom. My $2.50's already been eaten up. All I can tell you is no.
Yeah, no, that did not happen. I did not talk about that.
So they came and got you.
They came and got me. I didn't want to go. They medically deported me from Mexico because I didn't want to leave. So the doctor goes, "Fine, just medically deport you. That's fine." So we get to the airport, and I'm taken in this special way because I'm a deportee. and I mean, the joke I say now whenever I do migrant ministry or I meet people from Mexico is, I say, you guys, like, you have Mexican blood, I have Mexican blood.
Yes.
Some of you have been deported. I have been medically deported. It's not a great thing, but we have some commonalities here. But when I got back to the States, I mean, it was mid-March, and I couldn't move. I was in bed rest basically. Gosh, almost all the way up until August. And there's not a lot to do. We didn't have like tablets and stuff like we do now. So there was like nothing. It was like there was a TV and me and a bed. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about, what am I going to do with my life? Why am I not dead? What am I going to do with my life? And I prayed a lot. And I thought, Lord, like, there's no good reason that I am not dead. So what can I do with this? And then I said, if it wouldn't have been for all of those Mexicans who assisted me, the Mexican people, I would be dead. I said, so what I think I'd like to do with my life is assist them as they've assisted me. And then I said, so Lord, I don't know how that's going to happen, but that's something, since I'm already studying this language, that's something that I want to do in some way to try. Not that I can ever pay back what has happened. It's never going to be an equal exchange, right?
Sure.
But at least allow me to give thanks and to pay back what's been given to me. And so then priesthood came. After that, I was still in discernment, and I thought at that point, again, why am I not dead? Let's try this. The worst that can happen, quote unquote,
you get kicked out of that.
Is that I get kicked out or it doesn't fit. Okay, then we know. So I said, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And I've been here ever since.
Once again, we thank you for joining us today. We hope that wherever you find an open seat in your life, you will invite someone to join you.